The significance of Hades in ancient cultures such as ancient Greece had Hades ruling over the underworld or realm of the dead. He had full control of what the dead would do there and what punishment someone would be given. Although he did not punish someone directly, he rather had his Furies do the punishment for him. Hades also didn't really care about what happened on the surface. His main focus was to keep what was in the underworld there. But what about the significance of just ancient Greek mythology in general? Well, much like other religions or myths, it gave meaning and purpose to the world around them, like explaining the weather, the philosophy of life and death, and how things work and more. The stories that were told helped explain and teach people more about the world around them, giving lessons and figures to look up to, and amusing tales that help people understand and listen to it better. Furthermore, the ancient Greek people made temples and places of worship for the gods and goddesses. To go along with that, it was a common practice to the gods for good fortune, especially because if you didn't, then you'd be punished by the gods themselves. Overall, the impact of the myths and legends at the time was great and affected the way some citizens lived. I think for the most part, the gods and goddesses are the ones that are the most changed by modern media interpretations. Like in the popular movie Hercules, and the main focus of the day, the 2018 game Hades. These are both great examples of how we depict Greek gods today. Hades uses the mythology of ancient Greece to help tell their story of the son of Hades, Zagreus, and how it follows his journey through the underworld, trying to escape from his ruling father to see his mother Persephone above in the overworld. All while Hades tries to stop his son from leaving the underworld with his Furies, a good example of how we have changed the way we see things like the three-headed dog that guards the exits to the underworld, Cerberus. In the original myths, Cerberus is about the size of a regular dog, maybe bigger, although the depictions of the triple-headed dog are varying and never give a clear description of the animal. But in the game, the hound looks almost like a scarier version of Clifford the Red Dog. With red fur and giant size, it is far from the usual size in the original myths. Another comparison we can make is Zagreus, the main character you play in the game. Zagreus isn't very prominent in the classic myths, and is usually almost skimmed over. Zagreus is also usually paired with Dionysus, but in the game, Dionysus is his own character and isn't very associated with Zagreus at all, except for when he gets help from Dionysus with the power of the game's boons. Which leads me to my next topic, the way the game shows the powers and what each god has control over. The creator uses what they call boons to help Zagreus defeat the Furies sent by Hades, and later Hades himself. These boons hold the power from the god that sends them down. Another connection I found to be interesting is a tie of the abduction of the goddess Persephone and the main story of the game. In the myth, it is said that Hades fell in love with Persephone at first sight, and kidnapped her and brought her to the underworld. And after some time, Persephone grew a heart for the ruler Hades and fell in love. But I think this kind of explains why Persephone had run to the overworld from Hades. It also says in the myth that Persephone was dancing in a patch of flowers that she regularly went to. While this might seem random, when you come to see her at the end of the game, you see Zagreus' mother staying in a little home in a field of flowers. It is a small detail, but if it is connected, a very nice one. Third is how we see the myths now as a current culture. Comparable is the biblical hell and the Greek myth of the underworld. I feel like nowadays, anytime we hear the phrase the underworld, we think of the Christian hell and how it is filled with fire and lava and death. While on the other hand, the underworld pertaining to Greek mythology is usually depicted as dark and grim. With lost souls scattered throughout, it is also has great rivers that run through it. The most prominent one being the river Styx. Hades does a good job encapsulating the underworld in its whole, except It is full of cold but vibrant colors to help the player feel entranced in the gameplay, and looks almost like a mix of hell and the Greek underworld of the dead. So, what about the gods or goddesses and how they're different today? Well, Hades does a pretty good job at showing the gods as they are. For example, we can look at the goddess Artemis. She was the goddess of the hunt, nature, childbirth, and the care of children. Artemis looks like a huntress with her long bow and pelts, but it's not really implied that she is also the goddess of childbirth and taking care of children. Which is how I feel we see Artemis today, as just a hunting god, something we don't really incorporate with modern interpretations of these Greek myths today, is the importance of sexual themes. A lot of these tales would likely embody some sort of sexual theme. Hades does have the goddess of love and fertility, Aphrodite, but she isn't put in the story much besides helping Zagreus get out of the underworld. To close off the video, I think that Hades does an incredible job at showing off Greece mythology, with accurate depictions of the gods and as well as the world around them. And remember to stay hydrated.